Next, the Competition and Costing from the City of Indianapolis. Stephen Goldsmith, the mayor, is here, and Stephen Fantozzo, the executive director. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to be here. I, several years ago, never would have anticipated being in this forum, standing next to the person who opposed me for election and organized his forces to defeat our efforts. So it's a pleasure to be here.
And you are standing next to him up there?
That's the same guy, yes, sir.
Are you sure you want to go through with this?
He has the last word, and I only have 2.5 minutes, so I'll do this quickly. I ran on a platform of privatization. I began the process of innovation trying to find the most pervasive structural tools to infuse innovation throughout government structures. Indianapolis had done total quality management for 10 years. Had read virtually, at the time I got elected mayor, every case study that had been produced by this program, and began privatization to the outrage of the union. We quickly converted that to a competition initiative, which said that privatization undervalues the talents of public employees. They are, as has been said before, good people working in bad systems. Converted that to a competition effort, basically saying that if you want to have the widest spread, most pervasive influence, innovation influence, structural throughout the system, then we need to create risk. And we need to use the market to drive maximum value. So essentially, we looked for strategic tools and identified activity-based costing, understanding that traditional government accounting is really irrelevant to management, found out how much each activity of government cost, broke them down into business units, and began bidding them out one at a time. We've done 60 of 200 business units. Each time we compete one, whether the union wins or the private sector wins, the price comes down by 25%. The performance or outputs go up. Qualitative measurements increase as well. Now into the process, for 3 years, we've saved about $140 million. We've driven up quality. We've had, coincidentally, 250 mayors, governors, and their chiefs of staff visit. And most importantly, perhaps for purposes of this presentation, I think we've dramatically changed the atmosphere in which government employees work, where they're encouraged to innovate case by case, where they're encouraged for quality, where they identify citizens as their customers, and when they drive down their costs. And we've done that as a result of this partnership.
As the mayor said, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, this is it. I'd like to spend a minute talking about the value of competitive bidding from the employee perspective. We've now been in it 2 or 3 years, and it's had a number of positive results, some anticipated, some unanticipated. Our workforce in the city of Indianapolis has truly been empowered. The employees are the ones who decide on their job design in a number of instances. In a number of instances, we've gone to 4-day, 10-hour operations because the employees were able to prove it more efficient than standard government. We've established a system where all the union officers have computers in their workstations so that they can communicate directly with the mayor, breaking down the barriers of bureaucracy that exist at every level, and so that they can work with the same database in terms of financial information that private vendors or anybody else works with. The employees and the union have been involved in the training process, actually providing frontline training, and are dealing with issues such as the purchasing of services and supplies that we've traditionally not been involved in. And it's meant financial rewards to the employees. Our employees not only receive their contractual benefits, but also share in the gains produced by the savings that accrue to the city and to the taxpayers. The role of the union in the city of Indianapolis has changed dramatically under this innovative process. We've gone from a reactive situation in terms of filing grievances to a proactive union where we're involved in the design of the work and in the process as it exists. And I think the perceptions of the employees as to their self-value has improved. I think we've dispelled the myth that employees in the public sector are less efficient than employees in the private sector. We win 4 out of every 5 bids that we bid. And our grievances and arbitrations have dropped over the last 2 years from 300 and some plus to 12. There's a new partnership in the city of Indianapolis, and it's based primarily on the empowerment of employees in the process through the bidding process. Thank you.
Thank you. First, David, and then Dot, and then Wynn.
Mayor Goldsmith, I'd like to ask you two related questions. First, this competitive initiative is related to your larger vision for Indianapolis. And I wonder if you could briefly describe that to us, and then address the more difficult question I know you face, which is the flight of people, the flight of wealth from the city, and how well this initiative is helping you in that struggle.
Obviously, this is really the ultimate question facing us, and I kind of backed into this strategy for lack of time, didn't explain really the vision, but cities have become uncompetitive or non-competitive with their suburbs, and people, as you raise taxes, they just take their assets, their wealth, their homes, their businesses, and they move on the other side of the city line. And raising taxes to increase services is a self-defeating death spiral. Well, basically, what I thought we needed to do was to drive up quality and drive down cost and make our city the best possible place for people to live and for them to invest in their businesses. Essentially, what this has done in order to remain more competitive is it has driven up quality and driven down price. We've taken this $150 million in savings from the fact that Steve's men and women work more efficiently, invested in a $500 million infrastructure program called Building Better Neighborhoods, where we've invested in our most troubled neighborhoods with houses and sidewalks and curbs and all the rest of the things through community development corporations in order to say this is a good, safe place in which to live. So basically, we've tried to even the playing field so that our core city stays competitive with the regional economy.
And do you think it's working in terms of that, of the last point?
Last year, in each of the last 3 years, and we've reduced our workforce by 38%. We've just not laid off a union worker. Each of our last 3 years, we've had record job growth, the 3 greatest job growth years in the history of the city of Indianapolis. More houses were built in Indianapolis last year than any year. Population in Indianapolis went up 1.5% last year, more than any year in the history of the city of Indianapolis. So we've reversed it, and 5 minutes is not enough to tell you about our little miracle.
Is there anything wrong in Indianapolis?
Yeah, quite a bit.
All right. First question now, Dot.
Mine really is a quick
And
factual.
followed by Vin and Dick and Marco.
I just had a quick factual question. You're an AFSCME official.
That's correct.
What other unions are involved in the city, the police or whatever, and is there the same kind of involvement on that level?
Part of this depends on the willingness of the union leadership to participate at a new level, as Steve mentioned. AFSCME is, the fire union is, the police union is more resistant, and it varies from union to union. But generally, the fact we've had a positive experience with these 4 or 5 locals has helped convince the others to participate, but it is quite uneven.
But the other 2 are firefighters and police.
Yes, ma'am.
Vin.
Either Mayor Goldsmith or either one of you can answer. I'd just like you to think a little bit, and I don't expect that you would have a definitive answer to this, but you just talked about how well Indianapolis is doing. Is Indianapolis unique in some ways? Is the relationship between the management and the unions unique? Is the fiscal health of the city unique? Would we find that this can't be applied in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or Pittsburgh, or Detroit, or someplace like that?
We've had, as I mentioned, 250 communities or states visit. When Governor Whitman came out, I thought she was coming out to see me. She came out to see Steve's garbage truck drivers to find out why they were producing more productively. I think the answer is that the methodology applies everywhere. Now, whether a particular service is a private service or a public service is both a policy issue and a cost decision that will vary widely from community to community, from regional area to a small area. But the methodology, I think, and we've talked to Mayor Reardon, Mayor Giuliani, and others of large jurisdictions as well, I think the methodology applies no matter how big or how small the jurisdiction might be.
Dick?
Mr. Mayor, there's 2 questions that I have. First of all, obviously, you have created a different spin on the notion of privatization, and I really commend you for that. I think too often privatization becomes privatism, and it simply serves the private sector and not the people of the community, but obviously you've taken a different approach. Could you just walk through an example of how the competitive bidding works? Let's say in those instances where the private sector wins the bid.
There are 2 broadly disparate responses to that, Mayor. One is, on a micro level, we've had churches win bids to maintain their urban parks because they want to maintain them and program their kids in those parks, or maintain their alleys because city workers are not doing a good job in inner city communities. On a macro level, We've just finished the largest wastewater privatization in the world last year, where a large French company, where the technology is worldwide, saved us 44% or $64 million because it's an international activity. Our employees just bid, not AFSCME, but our employees just bid about the right to manage our Indianapolis International Airport. BAA, who runs Heathrow, won. They have more experience as a larger technology. So we have micro successes, small businesses, minority businesses, community groups taking control of their own neighborhoods and having a lot of self-investment. Then we have these kind of macro level activities which are more regional, where technology generally drives a private sector side to win.
Could I just follow up for a moment? You cited a substantial reduction in personnel, whatever that percentage was. I can't imagine your employees being happy about the fact that they're not working anymore. What happens when there is a major contract? Private sector wins the contract, therefore the employees in that department are no longer relevant. What happens to them?
The questions are good enough. They're difficult to collapse into the seconds, but two issues. One, virtually everyone who's no longer there was a person watching somebody else work, a political patronage worker, not a union worker. There have been union attrition, but with the union numbers have stayed about the same. The patronage employees, who generally were of my party, are not there. Secondly, we've tried to take it, this has driven innovation everywhere, and one of the places is in the city personnel department, which has these highly stylized classification systems, and we've committed that every time we displace a worker, that we're going to try to retrain that worker and fit that worker somewhere else in our system. So our downsizing has been in the management levels, and our rate of outsourcing has matched our attrition levels on the union side, and we've tried to preserve opportunities for people who are working with us.
I hate to cut